It's not a whisper. It's not a rumor. It's not some fleeting whisper carried on the wind. It's happening right now. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not someday in some distant future. This year. 2025. 44 countries are lining up to join BRICS. And this momentum isn't just a trend. It's an unstoppable tsunami crashing over the world's existing power structures. This isn't idle chatter or empty speculation. This is real, and it's unfolding in front of our eyes. 23 nations have already filed formal applications. Another 21 have made their intentions clear, no longer hiding in the shadows. The latest to take their place in the spotlight? Vietnam. And they didn't whisper a word of caution. No, their message was loud, defiant, crystal clear. We're ready. We want in. With that, the count hit 44. 44 countries making a deliberate choice. Turning not only towards BRICS, but away from the West. Away from the power brokers who have held the world in their grip for centuries. Away from institutions led by a few, where the rest are expected to fall in line. Away from the dollar's strangling control over global trade. But why now? Why this sudden dramatic shift? To understand the seismic shift that's unfolding, we need to rewind just a few months. April 2025. A single brief statement from Vietnam's foreign ministry hit the wires. In just a handful of words, it sent shockwaves through some parts of the world and was ignored by others. What Vietnam said wasn't just symbolic. No, it was a declaration. A clear and forceful message that BRICS is no longer just an alternative. It is becoming a force in its own right. A pole of global power, shaping the world's future with unprecedented speed and force. This isn't some slow, gentle evolution. This is an avalanche, a chain reaction, a domino effect of one nation after another, stepping out of the shadows, aligning themselves with a bloc that is transforming from a mere alternative to a revolutionary force. The numbers tell the story. 23 formal applications. 21 nations declaring interest. 44 countries shifting their entire trajectory. And this isn't happening in a vacuum either. July 7th, 2025, Rio de Janeiro. Mark this date. The 17th BRICS Summit. Normally, these meetings are nothing more than ceremonial affairs. But this one? This one could change everything. Insiders are already calling it the most consequential meeting in BRICS history. The stakes are so high they're practically tangible. On the table, a massive expansion of BRICS, structural overhaul, and a unified voice in global economics. But here's the shocker. BRICS is no longer just the original 5. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. No, it's now 10. Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the most sanctioned country on earth, and the wealthiest oil nation, sitting at the same table, negotiating trade without the dollar. But it's not just about who's joining, it's how they're joining. This isn't some casual agreement. This is no mere political convenience. It's strategic, calculated, and coordinated. Regional powerhouses are forming clusters. West African nations applying as a bloc. Southeast Asian countries rallying behind Vietnam's bold move. Even Latin American governments, once tightly bound to Washington, are quietly opening the door to BRICS, inching away from their former masters. And here's the game-changing part. BRICS isn't even trying to recruit. Unlike NATO, there are no open invitations, no calls to join. These nations are showing up, not as supplicants, but as equals, demanding a place at the table. Some of them have knocked before. Some are knocking for the second or even third time. But they aren't begging. They are demanding. What's drawing them in? It's simple. What the West no longer offers. Vietnam's statement made it abundantly clear. A desire for multilateralism, economic independence, and the dignity of being seen as trusted partners. Diplomatic language? Perhaps. But let's be clear. It was a slap in the face to the West. A direct challenge to the power imbalance that's reigned for far too long. A challenge to the handful of nations who've dictated the rules for everyone else. This wave of expansion isn't just about numbers. It's about identity. These countries are not just joining a bloc, they're migrating to a new system. One that speaks their language. One that reflects their struggles, their realities, their ambitions. And one that offers something the West hasn't given in decades. Respect. As the summit in Rio approaches, the pressure is building. The clock is ticking. The decisions made there won't just alter the fate of BRICS. They could redraw the entire global economic map. At some point, a movement no longer reacts to the world, it shapes it. And still the question remains, why now? Why is 2025 the tipping point? To answer that, we must dig deep beneath the surface of diplomacy, beneath the polished veneer of formal statements, and peer into the cold, calculated power play unfolding behind the scenes. This isn't some organic grassroots movement. No, this is being orchestrated. 3 countries, China, Russia, and Iran, are driving this revolution with ruthless precision. They're not waiting for the world to catch up. They are building it. They're constructing a new global order, piece by piece from the inside out. And behind the scenes, they're shaping the narrative. dictating the terms, and turning BRICS into something much more than a political alliance. It's becoming a weapon in the hands of those who understand how to wield power. A geopolitical instrument unlike anything the world has seen before. The old world order is on its knees, barely hanging on. And for the first time in decades, a new order isn't just a distant possibility. It's an inevitability. And it's coming for everything we thought we knew about global power. This isn't a quiet transformation. It's an eruption, a tectonic shift that's unfolding beneath the surface, waiting to explode into a new era. And it's happening right under our noses, in places the West has barely noticed. Let's start where the Earth is shaking, China. For years, Beijing's approach to BRICS has been seen as cautious, calculated, even restrained. But the truth is far darker, far more dangerous. Behind the curtain, China has been preparing for this moment for over a decade. This isn't a diplomatic game. They aren't just playing in the margins. Beijing's state-run banks aren't tinkering. They are building a parallel financial system. They've created cross-border payment systems that sidestep SWIFT, completely undermining the Western financial order. And this is just the beginning. China has quietly forged over a dozen trade agreements with countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central Asia. Not in dollars, but in local currencies. On the surface, it looks like trade. But in reality, it's a masterstroke of geopolitical strategy. Preemptive integration. Nations bound to China economically, before they even enter the BRICS fold. This is not just about trade. This is China pulling the world into its orbit, long before it wears the BRICS badge. But China isn't alone. Enter Russia, the cornered titan. Once an economic powerhouse, now diplomatically suffocated by Western sanctions, Russia has made its move. Moscow hasn't just pivoted, it's thrown itself into the arms of the East. Where Europe slammed its doors shut, BRICS has torn them open. Russia's role in BRICS isn't about ambition, it's about survival. BRICS is Russia's escape route, a vital link to new energy markets, uncharted trade corridors, and a coalition of nations willing to thumb their noses at Western sanctions. Pipeline deals with India, ruble-based trade with Iran. These aren't isolated events. These are the first steps in a new world order. Russia isn't just joining BRICS, it's helping to build it, creating a parallel global economy where the West has no influence. And BRICS? It's Russia's shield, protecting its future in a world that is closing in on it. And then there's Iran. Once a pariah, now an unstoppable force in the shadows. For decades, Iran lived under the brutal weight of embargoes, sanctions, and constant threats of regime change. But in the darkness, Iran honed a weapon no one expected: quiet diplomacy. It didn't need applause. It didn't even need recognition. Iran became the master of influence without visibility, and now, as a full member of BRICS, it's pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Iran has used its membership to draw in nations like Venezuela, Syria, Sudan, selling BRICS not as an exclusive club, but as a sanctuary. A place where regime change has no power, where the dollar's chokehold is shattered. The West may ignore Iran, but Iran has found its home, and it's reshaping the geopolitical landscape with BRICS as its platform. But here's where the stakes turn dangerous. What if BRICS doesn't stop at 10 or 12 members, but explodes to 44? This isn't a diplomatic contest. This isn't polite nations jockeying for a seat at the table. This is an all-out assault on the existing world order. BRICS isn't just a regional alliance. It's a direct challenge to the very foundation of global governance. What we're witnessing is not a diplomatic shift, it's a geopolitical earthquake. Now let's talk about the real threat, the US dollar. Right now, over 85% of global trade is conducted in one currency, the US dollar. Not because nations adore it, but because they have no choice. Oil, semiconductors, grain, the dollar is the toll you pay to play in the global system. But what if within BRICS 30 or more nations decide to break free? What if they decide to rewrite the rules of global finance? In 2025, 2 BRICS nations executed an oil trade. No SWIFT, no dollars, just a third-party clearinghouse and the Chinese yuan. The West barely noticed. But the rest of the world? They were watching. That single transaction sent shockwaves through the global system. It can be done. The dollar isn't invincible. The foundation that the West built is starting to crack. Now imagine scaling this. 30 nations, hundreds of billions of dollars rerouted through local currencies or a shared digital unit. Each transaction weakens the dollar's grip, not immediately, but steadily, unavoidably. Every trade that bypasses the dollar is another crack in the system. And with each crack, the power of the US to impose sanctions, freeze assets, and control global finance begins to decay. The very tools Washington has used for decades to control the world will start to fade. Quietly, subtly, but with relentless certainty. But it's not just about money. It's about power, infrastructure. For decades, the Global South had only 2 choices, the IMF or the World Bank. Loans that came with strings attached. Strings that forced nations to submit to austerity measures, political reforms that often served outsiders more than locals. Now imagine an alternative. Imagine a BRICS-backed system, one where countries can access loans in their own currencies, where power grids, dams, roads, and real projects are funded without the fine print that demands they play by Western rules. This isn't a hypothetical, it's already happening. The new development bank, fueled by new BRICS members, is already changing the game. If BRICS succeeds in creating a truly independent development finance system, the entire global infrastructure could shift beneath our feet. And while BRICS may never become a military alliance on paper, make no mistake, economic interdependence breeds strategic alignment. Nations that trade outside the Western sphere will begin sharing more than just goods. They will share intelligence, coordinate digital infrastructure, and develop joint security measures. Not with soldiers on the ground, but with firewalls, surveillance systems, encrypted communications, soft power, hardened into something far more potent. But for many leaders in the global south, BRICS is more than just a geopolitical shift. It's a personal revolution. In the UN, their voices are symbolic. In the IMF, they're a statistic. But in BRICS, they have a chance to lead, to write the rules instead of following them. They see an opportunity to reshape the global system, to escape the shackles that the West has imposed on them for centuries. BRICS isn't just policy, it's their chance to control their own future. But the West is watching. And as the pressure mounts, retaliation is inevitable. Sanctions, trade wars, media manipulation? The final question isn't whether BRICS will expand, it's whether it can survive. Can this audacious coalition endure the weight of its ambition? Or will it crumble under its own aspirations? Can it defy the gravity of the old system and rise to challenge the West? We won't have to wait long to find out. In just weeks, the world turns to Rio de Janeiro, a summit that could forever shift the global balance of power. 10 nations, powerful and united, stand at the top of the pyramid. 44 others wait in the wings. One decision, one move that could change everything. Has BRICS already reshaped the world, or is this just the beginning? The answers are coming fast. Don't blink, because the future is unfolding right in front of us. Stay tuned. The storm is far from over.